This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz, and I'm very excited to be speaking with Cory Michael Smith about Saturday Night. How are you, Cory?
I'm great, man. How are you?
Good, good. Can you tell me your first memory of Chevy Chase?
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's a great question. I've been asked this before. It's probably National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. And if not that, certainly one of the vacations. That was like as a kid, that was sort of my introduction to Chevy Chase. So when I think of him, I do think of like a goofier side of him, which is a little different than sort of the young adult version of the spry, confident, hopeful Chevy Chase I was trying to like design for this film.
And what's your relationship with Saturday Night Live?
Um, oh wow. Well, Saturday Night Live, I started watching, I guess, in the 90s with my parents and my brother. Will Ferrell, Sherry O'Terry, Anna Gasteyer, Molly Shannon, Chris Kattan. That was my introduction to Saturday Night Live, and I still have like a real fondness for that era.
So how did you become involved with this project and end up with this really key role?
How?
Yeah.
I went through like a traditional audition process. John Papsdare was our casting director who did this amazing job of putting together this ensemble. It's one of the greatest ensembles I have ever been a part of and probably will ever. It's an unbelievable group they put together. But I auditioned for it. I think there were four total. The last one was in person, which doesn't happen all the time. And I remember in that audition, like walking into the room and starting off my audition by doing a pratfall, tripping over a chair for Jason, which made him deeply concerned, I think, off the bat.
Did you consider any other role, or you knew that this was the one that you wanted?
Oh, no. I mean, the thing too is like, I didn't initially, like, I didn't even necessarily think that I was right for this role, but the project was so cool. And I'm an admirer of Jason Reitman's. I mean, now more than ever, but certainly before. Uh, but it's like my reps were sort of like, we think you look like a young Chevy Chase, and I had never been told that. I didn't really see it. But I don't think there was another place for me other than Chevy.
I think there is definitely a resemblance. I think, hair and makeup helps with that a little more, but
100%, yeah.
how much did you want to really, be as close to the real him as possible, and how much did you want to sort of create your own version?
Um, well, there's so much out there, I didn't speak to Chevy personally. Jason was kind of encouraging us not to interact with people we were portraying. My objective was to try to capture an essence of Chevy Chase that feels really familiar to people. I was spending a lot of time studying his performances, the way he speaks, his cadence, the dryness with which he delivers jokes, this particular flavor uh, of like ornery that he has, and also being a little sardonic. And the thing that I wanted to capture a version of him that people know and can recognize. I really like studied a lot of his little ticks and bits and tried to put some Easter eggs from some of his movies in there. But in many ways, I needed to, in order to make the story work, the arc that Jason wrote, and also honor who he was then. It's the night before the world was really introduced to this guy, um, and so you know it aired in October of 1975. By December, he's on the cover of New York Magazine, like this absolutely stratospheric rise. And so before this moment, he's confident and he's talented and he has a point of view. He created Weekend Update, which is, survived for half a century. He's incredibly talented and he believes in his talent, but he doesn't have any legs to stand on, really. He doesn't have a platform for his confidence to be supported by. So he has all of these ingredients, but he's kind of fragile in certain ways. So when we see him, get like kicked in the back of his knees by J.K. Simmons as Milton Berle, it's like the knees really buckle because he doesn't have any authority yet. So I just really wanted to capture like the fragility of his confidence, which is maybe something that we don't think of with Chevy Chase today, or certainly in the 80s and 90s when he was sort of like really in his heyday. Uh, but yeah, that was sort of my angle.
I think in a film full of aggressive interactions, that may be the most brutal one. Milton Berle's takedown, just it's so unnecessarily cruel, but I think it's because he thinks that this guy who is gonna be hot shit thinks already that he is hot shit.
That's correct. Yeah. It's a real meeting of egos, except that Milton Berle's is like fully developed monster.
I'd like to hope J.K. Simmons isn't, a monster. What was it like working with him?
JK is great. JK is very funny. A really sweet guy. JK is kind of one of my favorite brand of like mature actors, which is that he's a storyteller. He's had this amazing storied career from doing tons of theater back in the day, you know, to what he's accomplished in the last, you know, 2 decades or so. It's like I love when like an older actor is able to just sit down in their chair and go story after story after story, like imparting all of these incredible little tidbits of their career. And he's that guy. So I thoroughly enjoyed being around him.
Who else were sort of dream co-stars that you got to interact with on here?
Um, well, Willem Dafoe and I share managers, and I had met him a long time ago. He was doing a Robert Wilson piece at BAM here in New York City with Barishnikov, and it was one of the coolest theater experiences I had ever had. And I went with one of my managers, and so I went backstage and met Willem, and I was a really young, green, enthusiastic young actor, and Willem was so kind to me. And anytime I've seen him, he's been really gracious. But it was very cool to be on set with him as a colleague. Um, and in one of the scenes before he and I really worked together, there's a scene. It's the second time you see Chevy, where he's sort of doing a little stand-up set in front of the affiliates to warm them up for the evening. And on the day, I had told Jason that I had some ideas for other jokes, and I had spent like the previous week or so sort of writing jokes in the voice of Chevy Chase uh, to prepare for this. And so the day I showed up, I sort of proposed to Jason that I had all of this other stand-up set, and did he want me to like run it by him or show it to him? And he told me to just do it. And so I've never done this in my life, stand up or comedy really. So I just sort of got up on stage and the cameras rolled and I did this Chevy Chase stand up comedy set in front of Willem and Gabe and Cooper Hoffman and of course Jason and co-writer Gil. And then these 40 or 50 strangers I had never seen before as our affiliates. And that was it was extra terrifying because of Willem, because I have so much admiration and respect for him as an artist. And that was like a really special day, you know, for me.
Very nice. When did you have a chance to see the film first with an audience?
Um, well, so the first time I saw it was a small group at Sony here in New York City. And that was very special for me because I was there with Ella Hunt, who plays Gilda Radner, and there's a moment in the film at the end where Gilda's talking about having nostalgia for the moment that you're in, and which I just think is just a really beautiful idea. And it's something that I've experienced over and over with this film, sort of this like unbelievable, repeated realization of participating and telling the story of the legacy of this institution and playing someone whose own comedy, legacy is remarkable. So that was very special. And then at TIFF, I got to watch it with like a full audience. And the TIFF audiences are really vibrant and loud and participative. And so this was a particularly fun film to see at the festival.
I saw it at TIFF also, not at the first screening, at the second one, but it was still a very, full house and a lot of excitement. And I think a lot of the right generation who was alive at the time and really excited to see this, done. Have you heard what Chevy thinks about your performance?
Um, I know that Jason showed it to him. Um, I know that Jason showed it to him, and I don't want to put him on red, but in Chevy fashion, he said a snarky comment with a smile, which is really all that I could ask for. I had said to Jason um, ahead of time, I was like, all I want is for him to say something mean and not mean it, you know? Uh, and so it was sort of a flavor of that.
I was when I was preparing to talk to you, I was looking back at your past roles and seeing 1985, his
Yeah.
first big real cut. And I feel like that film couldn't be any different from Saturday Night, but I have to assume there are a lot of, enthusiasts who are going to see this and be like, let's go after all these actors, see what they've done. How do you look back on 1985?
I'm really proud of that film. Yen Tan is a great filmmaker. I really, really enjoyed working with him on this. I thought I I, I remember reading that screenplay and having like maybe one of like the strongest visceral emotional reactions to any script I had read. And so it was a very vibrant emotional life for me from the beginning. And I was able to sort of work with Yen very specifically on crafting what that would look and feel like. And I particularly loved working with Virginia Madsen as mother. She's a really wonderful special actress. I have a lot of fondness for that film. It was the first movie where I was really like leading a film, and I appreciated Yen's trust in that. But yeah, it's very different. Saturday Night it's actually my first like proper comedy. I've certainly like done some roles that I think are funny. I thought Georgie in May December was a funny character. But you know, I don't know that I would call that a proper comedy, but yeah, I've tried to be really intentional about you know trying to craft this career that I've made with my managers, who I've been with for a long time. And this year has actually been a really nice sort of evolution in a new direction that I'm really excited about and proud of. So I appreciate you acknowledging that. Thank you.
Of course. Well, before I let you go, this is Awards Buzz. So we always like to talk about what people have seen recently, a film, a show, or performance that's really sticking with you as particularly awards worthy.
Um, I'm a big fan of Honora. Sean Baker is one of my favorite filmmakers. Um, I just something I love about him is like having such a grip on comedy through like tension, but like living in a drama. I just think he's so masterful at it. His films feel so alive to me. And also, as someone who grew up a Catholic, I had a particular fondness for Conclave. I think that movie is delicious. That director, Edward, is also someone I really admire, has a really great command of tension in a way that I really enjoy. So I'd say those are two films that I'm like pretty wild about right now.
Those are great choices. It was a pleasure to meet you, and best of luck in the future.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for your time.